Hello buzzers, John here, and with this being the very first video of 2020, the first thing I need to do is wish you a very happy new year and a great year of photography. What I've got for you this week is kind of a sneak preview or a teaser of our black and white course, which is running in Norfolk on the 22nd and 23rd of February. Over that weekend, we have a whole day's shooting and we spend an entire day looking at Photoshop, Camera Raw and Lightroom processes to make great black and white techniques. But here's one that's really important and I wanted to run by you, and that involves using Photoshop. This is all about dodging and burning, which in the days of the darkroom would involve making areas of a picture lighter or darker according to your preference. Of course, back then you couldn't actually see what you were doing until the image emerged in the developing tray, but nowadays using a screen is much easier to keep tabs on your progress. So, dodging and burning, it's about making areas lighter or darker, and what I've got here is a mono conversion. Now this is a fairly flat, fairly kind of grey example, because to use the dodge and burn tools, you don't need too much contrast. So after you've converted your picture from colour to monochrome, the first thing you want to do is make sure your layers palette is up on screen. Now if yours isn't there, just go to Window and choose Layers from the list and it will pop up. Now what we're going to do first of all is copy this background layer. There are various ways you can do that. One thing I'm going to do is just grab hold of it and drag it over the Create a New Layer icon. Release the mouse and you'll get a background copy directly above the background layer. This is just a carbon copy of the one underneath, and that's fine, but what we're going to do is give it a new name. So to do that, I'm just going to double click where it says background copy here, and I'm going to write burn. Now I've got my layer all ready for some burning. I need the burn tool. And you'll find that over here in the toolbox. It's grouped, you've got the dodge tool, the burn tool and the sponge tool, all of which are grouped together. And we need the burn tool, so I'm going to select that. Once we've done that, we need a soft-edged brush, so I'm just going to click on the brush preset picker and I'll pick soft round. The size of the brush I can change using the square brackets keys, left to go down, right to go up in size. And I'm going to go for something like that, about 700 pixels on this particular image. Now, if I start to use the burn tool straight away, let's see what happens. You see that gets very dark very quickly and it all gets a bit streaky and a bit messy and it's a nightmare. That's because the default exposure value set up here in the options bar is way too high. So I'm just going to undo that by hitting Control or Command and Z a few times. That'll get us back to our starting point. And then what I'm going to do is firstly set the range to shadows. To burn is to make darker, because we want to burn or make darker the darkest areas of the image. And then I'm going to set exposure down really low, about 5%. 4 or 5% is absolutely fine for the burn tool. So once you've done those two things, you've got range on shadows and exposure on 5%, you can then start playing the tool over the image to make particular areas darker. And the areas that will be made darker are the areas which are already in the shadows. So it won't affect the brighter areas. In fact, if I just burn over that bit, you see nothing happens over this area because it's mid-tone or highlight that's involved. However, if I burn down here, I will make an impact because it's beneath the mid-tone and it's actually in the shadow area of the image, and that will start to make that area darker. So I'm gradually, very gently making the area darker. And the reason you can't see that much happening is because of that 5% value in exposure. However, you can see I've used the burn tool on this area of the image, and because we've got it happening on a separate layer, if I switch that on and off, you can see the difference it makes. So there is quite a marked difference. It's very subtle when you're doing it, but that's the reason to have it on a separate layer, so you can check your progress and make sure things are working in the way you want. So I'll do a bit more. I'll just carry on doing some more burning. A little bit in here, and I'll do a bit in that sky as well. I use a bigger brush here, and I'm just going to sweep across the sky. That'll make that top part of the sky a bit darker, but leave the bottom part of the sky, which of course is brighter than the shadow range that we're affecting. That won't be affected. So we'll just darken that down, and I think that will probably do the trick for now. That's enough burning for the time being. And once more, we can just double check by clicking on the eye icon alongside our burn layer, and there you go. You've got a nice bit of grit and contrast coming through the picture. Right, what we're now going to do is some dodging, and dodging involves making stuff a bit lighter. So what we're going to do is copy the burn layer. We can do that in the same way, dragging it over the Create a New Layer icon, or we can just hit Control or Command and J. you get the same result, you'll get a burn copy layer. But we want to rename this to Dodge. So I'm going to double click where it says burn copy, and I'm going to type in Dodge. What we now want to do is select the Dodge tool from the toolbox. So we click on the burn tool, mouse down on that, and select the Dodge tool. Now once more, the default values are way too high. And if we were to start painting, we'd get horrible streaks all over the image. So let's not do that. Let's hit Control Command and Z to get out of that change. And we're going to set range to highlights because we only want to dodge the brightest areas. And we'll set exposure to that same really low value of 5%. Now that's done, we've got our brush. We've already got a soft edge brush selected. We can carry on with that, but I'm going to make it a bit smaller this time because I want to dodge particular details. So this area here, I'm going to start working into, and you can see that the brightest parts of the scene, these little tufts of grass, they're going to be made brighter still. So I'm kind of painting on the areas where I want to create a bit more brightness. And I want that walkway to look really bright as well. So I'm just going to dodge that. There we go. And a bit more here. There we go. Now I'm taking care not to go too far with this one, because if I over dodge and I bleach it out to pure white, then I'll lose all detail and I've got no alternative but to start again. So if I have overdone it, all I can do is kill that layer, drag it to the trash, then start again from scratch. So let's zoom in just to check we haven't overdone it. I think we're just within range. Yeah, that's all looking quite nice. We've got those little bright areas coming through, and I think we'll do a little more detail in the middle distance, just through here, perhaps with a slightly smaller brush. Just bring up a bit more brightness in those areas. That's good. And a little bit perhaps in this barn as well. And I think that's done the trick. Let's just switch that on and off to see the difference. And look at that, you can see that brightness really coming through and giving some real shape to the image. So I'm happy with the dodging now. But what I think I will do is add a little bit more burning into this walkway. I want this to be the real centerpiece of the image. So I think I'm just going to add a bit of burning straight on top of that dodge layer. So to do that, all we do is swap back to the burn tool. There it is there. We've got our shadow set and our exposure of 5% already set. Let's zoom in, use a smaller brush, that's left square brackets key. And I'm just going to work into the edges of this. I want a kind of a bright strip down the middle, but I want the darker areas to be nice and black, nice and dark, so full of shadows in the darker areas, leaving the whites to stand proud of it. So what I'm doing really is just painting on extra contrast and controlling it very gradually using a brush. And that's the kind of thing. And I'll just zoom back so I can see the whole image, and I'll try a quick before and after. Yeah, that's working well. So I've got some nice looking contrast throughout the image. The only thing I might want to do is perhaps burn in a little bit more of the sky. So we'll just increase brush size to make sure it's nice and even, and then we can just burn across the sky just to thicken that area and darken it down a little bit more. And there we go. That's how you can use the dodge and burn tools in a really controlled way to make a big difference to your picture. If you look at our starting point, that's where we came in, and you can see it's very flat and very grey. But by using the burn tool on a separate layer and by setting it up to the range of shadows and exposure of 5%, we can paint on some darkness where we want it. We can then use the dodge tool in exactly the same way and paint on some brightness to give us that nice contrast kick exactly where we want it. And of course, having that kind of control over your contrast is what really makes a black and white image work. So there you go. That's how to use the dodge and burn tools in a controlled and effective way. And if you like what you see and want to learn even more about black and white processing and the art of capturing black and white pictures, have a look at the meetup section and you'll see the black and white course on the 22nd and 23rd of February. Hope to see you there. All right, cheers, and thanks for watching.